So, welcome back. Took a slight break, but we managed to complete Ha'ara Ches, hagaha Ches, and we're ready to start hagaha Tes. Hagaha Tes is on Amud Lamed Daled at the bottom. And let's just make sure we know where we're at. We're in the middle of the biur of the Shittas Arakanti. And we explained the difference in the Shittas Arakanti to the Shittas Ma'areches. Whereas the Ma'areches holds, then we talk about Sfiris, Atzilus, we mean both the Eidos and the Kalim. And it's, according to the Shittas Ma'areches, the Kalim are just another manifestation of the Eiron Seish Lifnei HaTzimtzum, the Eirag Gvul, the Keach HaGvul, and they're just a manifestation of that. So B'etzim, there's no real difference between the Eiros and the Kalim, except for one is more of a Tzimtzum, and but they both are reflections of the Eiron Seish Lifnei HaTzimtzum. The Rakanti, by contrast, holds that the Eir is an Eir Pashut. The Eir is a Pshutim, the Gamri. And the Kalim are not a Ha'ara, are not Nishtalshul. The Lashon was Nishtalshul. In the Ma'areches, you say it's Nishtalshul. Each one of them, both the Eiros and the Kalim, are Nishtalshul from the Eiron Seish Lifnei HaTzimtzum. But according to the Rakanti, the Kalim are fundamentally different to the Eiros. So he gives the mashal of his neitzutzus, they're like a nitzutz. So even though they're not mamish a dov and nifrad and a completely different thing, they are from the substance, they come from the rishimu. This is if you remember, you did the chazara, that this is the matzav we're in. That the kalim themselves are, whilst they're atzilus, whilst they're elikus, they're of a completely different order than the Oy. The Eiros are mamish pshutim, and the Kalim are definitely the Gabi, the Oy, mamish mutziyarim, bolim. And on this point, we were meirich in hagaha Ches about the fact that the Oy is not mugbal in the Kli. That it doesn't have the Hagbolas HaKli. The Eir remains b'pshitusay. It's mislabish, it's not nitfas, it's still bein aroich, there's a slabshus of sorts, but it's not nitfas. Right? And we're going to continue now in hagaha Tes, and we're going to point out this distinctiveness between the Eidos and the Kalim. So if we think about it in the context of the whole Maimah, both the Maimah, the Alter Rebbe from Torah Pasach Liyol, and the agenda of the Hagoyis of the Rebbe Rashab, is to Pasha explain Atzilus. So we started off talking about how the Kalim are Miloshen Tachshitim, Miloshen Tikunin, Miloshen Levushim. So we said the difference in Levusham Yuchad, Levusham Nifrad, in contrast to Biyah, the Levushim HaMiyuchadim. We talked about that ba'arichas, how it's mesakinus ha'oy, like a tachshit, which is it has an impact on the person who's lubish with that in that tachshit. And we moved on to focusing on the different shittas about the Eiros and the Kalim. So we started with the Ma'areches, we moved on to the Rakanti. And we said that the shitta, the Rebbe Rashab said the shitta of the Maimon to the Eir is like the shittas of Rakanti. The Eir is Pashut, and the Kalim are of a different order. Now, we don't go so far as saying it's mamish like Biyah. No, it's still a likus, Yuba Gamur Ichad, right? But there's still a core difference. But once you say there's a big difference, then you have a whole bunch of problems. You have a problem of Shinui, you have a problem of Ribui, and those are all questions we dealt with in hagaha Ches. It's not Yidei, but Yidei Shechutz Mimenu, right? So you've done the Chazara, so you remember this. This is where we're up to. So this is just the sugyas that we've dealt with until now. And now it's time to move on to the next sugya in a sense, or the next necessary sugya. Now, you've got to remember also, both Ma'areches and the Rekanti, they're before the Ramak, they're before the Arizal. So in the development, in the scholars of Pnimis HaTorah, the scholars of Kabbalah, they're before a lot of the Giluyim that came later with the Ramak and with the Arizal. So much of what we're going to say in the Shitta of the Rekanti is going to be adapted and is going to be made to work better according to the Ramak and according to the Arizal. So we're going to need Shittas HaTimtzum, which Bechlal was not prevalent, was not a dominant theme before the Arizal. Whether it existed or not, Bechlal is a whole different parsha. But in Yonei HaTimtzum are going to come in to help us explain the Rekanti. That's going to come into play in this hagaha too. Okay, just to set you up. Now there are different footnotes throughout this, referring to different Maimarim and everything. The truth is, I think here is where it's explained the best. Now, you can look up some of the stuff. You get a bit of, especially from the Samach Vav, you'll find some interesting things. Also, I mean, in truth, the one Maimah which I would say is good, which you've learnt, is the Maimah HaChidesh. I think it's the first one of Ein Ches. The one from Pashas Boy that's the first one. Achidesh, the first Achidesh in Ein Ches, there's two Achidesh. You have Achidesh twice in Ein Ches. So the Achidesh from Pashas Boy is probably the clearest place where you see all the ideas laid out. But other than that, I don't think you need to go fishing around, because here you have what you need over here. Okay? Are we ready to start? Hagotes. This goes on for a number of pages. I can't remember it finished. I think it's in about 6 or 7 pages it finishes. Yeah, 3 lines from the bottom. When we talk about Chochmah, and here we're talking about Chochmah Vatzilus, and really we're talking about Kli HaChochmah, that is when it's about Eira Chochmah. Because Bechlal in the Rekanti there's not even such a thing as Eira Chochmah. Eira is Poshet. So we have the Kli HaChochmah. For the Kli HaChochmah of Atzilus to emerge from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the Ein Sof, it's not in a manner of ishtalshalus, which, if you remember in the Shita Mareches, that is the whole hagash. It's b'loshen ishtalshalus, right? If it's b'loshen ishtalshalus, that means it's nimtza, it exists beforehand. Ishtalshalus is the b'shat ilavolu. So the hishavus of Chochmah Atzilus is not b'derech ishtalshalus ilavolu, ela b'bechinas b'yesh ma'ayin, the manner of yesh ma'ayin. So we're now going to explain the difference between something that's created, the notion of Elova Olul, and the concept of Yesh Ma'ayin. So a klolistic sugya, which is Nageya, side by side, yeah? But here it's going to come in, it's going to come to our aid to explain this, the nature of the Kelim of Atzilus, which are the spheres, according to the Rekanti. When we talk about spheres, we mean Kelim. Because the can't have this Hakbala that we're describing when we talk about spheres. As of Litation. So when we talk about Ishtalshlus of Olul, the Il and the Olul, the cause and the effect, have a shaykhis one to the other. Not just a shaykhis, even a kiruf. So there's erech. When you say something has an erech, that means it's of the same order of things. But when we talk about an erech, you might say that when we talked about the moshel of the Mesikas Hapri, comes from Chesed Atzilus. And we talked about different dargas in Mesikas, right? So you have Mesikas Seichel, you have Mesikas of Nigun, you can have a Ruchnistik Mesikas, a Gashmistik Mesikas. All of them though have an Erech Zelazah. They're not Be'ein Arich. You want to say the Mesikas Apri is Be'ein Areich to the Mesikas Anigim. There is a Tadashava, there's a common, they are associated. That's what we mean by Erech. You wouldn't say it's Be'ein Areich. But more than that, when we talk about Ilav Olul, we're talking, it has to have a Kiruv as well. There's no Kiruv between Chesed Atzilus and the Mesikas Apri. They have an Erech maybe, but not a Kiruv. Here it's not just an Erech. We're talking about Shtashus Ilav Olul. From the Ilah to the Olul, there's not just the Erech, there's also a Kiruv. Shah Olul, hu be'erech ilasei, shehimti oisei. So first of all, the what is affected has a commonality with the thing that is producing it. Point one. Well, the gam koidim shenimtza ha'olul ha'yikolul techila be'ilasei. Why do they have an erech? If how are we examining this? We're examining this post facto, yeah? If we're trying to look at something, we're saying something was an ilah and something was an olul. Something caused something and something effect, and we can observe its effect. Yeah? So when we're analyzing that, we have to first realize that these two things are associated. They have a commonality. Because even before the production of the olul, there was an element, an aspect of some sort of the olul in the ilah, even before it emerged. Allah shahya behalim. Prior to its emergence, it was behalim. So it's more edel, and it wouldn't be so apparent. And once the process has taken its course, the ishtalshlus has happened, then it's murgish. But the olul wasn't invented, wasn't created from nothing. The olul is the realization of something that was already present, albeit it was unapparent. It wasn't apparent. It wasn't sensed in any way. So another way of thinking about Ilav Olul is Helam V'Gilu. It's just a matter of something coming Mina Helam El Agilu. So if you're going to be Megala something from a Helam, then it's innate that you're going to have that the Gilu is going to be of an order of what it was previously, how it was behelim. Being in a helim v'gilu, ein hakavonu she'olul hanelam b'ha'ila, tzayim hanimtza behelim b'ha'ila, hu levad nikra ha'helim shel ha'gilui, ela klolos ha'ila nikra helim nagabi ha'olul, shu ha'gilui, ki ha'ila b'chlolusam ha'chayeves is ha'olul, liyef ba'even kach v'kach. V'lachin nimtza metzias ha'olul behelim b'ha'ila koidim shniskala. This is now a second point. I'm not sure actually where to. Let me just look at this a second. I'm not sure what it's saying there. What if that Helam
which the Helam which the Gil is like is not its Helam, it's the Helam of the Ilah. You need to say that you shouldn't think that when we say that the Gilui is kfir from the Helam, just like the way the Gilui was as was in the Helam, so too that's the way it's in Skala. It doesn't make much sense. If that's what it is, that's what it is. What it's trying to say is the way the Ilah is, that's mechayiv the way the Olog be. The Olog is similar to the Ilah. Because the Ilah is what's mechayiv to be in Skala.
Okay, so what's the Inina Helam?
It says Helam doesn't mean the Helam of the
Gilu.
It means the Ilah. Why he says Helam, I don't know, but that's
okay. I have to think about that a little bit more. But this is a key point, that when it comes to ilah v'alul, what he's saying is the ilah is machayev the alul. So it's not. There's a necessary. The way the alul is kolul in the ilah is in such a manner that the alul, the ilah itself, needs to or demands that this gilui should happen. So it's, I mean, remember we talked about the problem with the moshel, for example, of the Eira Shemesh. We said it's a gilui hechreichi, right? The gilui that comes from the sun, the Eira Ziv HaShemesh, comes b'derech memela from the Shemesh. And that was the problem we had with the moshel, and we had to bring the moshel from Keichas HaNefesh, if you remember. So there's such a thing with it, the ilah. So the sun is the ilah of the Eir, the Ma'ir, and that's the Eir. So in that relationship, it's mechayevet. Now, you can say it's not nitzvus in it in the same way, so maybe it's not a good moshel. I have a moshel for this that I don't know if it's a moshel mechuvan. Stom is not, but I think it's helpful to think it through. A Vlad, a child, a fetus, post-conception. So a woman gets pregnant. She's pregnant with a child, right? So she is the cause, she's the ilah to what's ultimately going to be an alul child, right? Prior, once you see the child born, you know the child comes from this mother. The alul is sort of is megal. It's nikah where it comes from. It's got a shaykh. It has an erech, has a kiruv to its ilah. But even before it became into a metzius ha'alul, it was already nichel in the ilah. Okay, and whilst it's there, mitzad the ilah itself is machayev v'skalas ha'alul. Yeah? So an already pregnant woman who's already conceived. You know, see, when we come to British Shemaim, we think about differently. It will be preconception. And we'll use that moshel again. I think it can be helpful.
The only difference would be that over here we're saying that the woman herself would be the Helen, which became the Gilead, right? We're trying to say over here that
it's what do you mean? It is her.
Right, but the fetus is only part of her, right?
But what emerged from her? It's her etzem, no? It's her DNA. Okay, so the moshel he gives here is seichel midis. Standard, the traditional moshel for ilavol. K'may seichel midis, am midis em lefi erech ha-seichel. Or k'may shekosel lefi seichel yuhul al-ish. Every person's midis are lefi erech their seichel. So lefi oifen ha-seichel keinu ha-midis. Da ha-seichel mechayev es ha-midah. So every intellectual concept, even if it's really it contains within it the capacity for that sort of to be a bechein, an emotional response, a reaction to it, whether it's something desirable or undesirable. It's not pure seichel. The seichel itself contains within it the natiyah, the potential natiyah of kiruv or the hapech of richuk from such a thing. Chen seichel is far shel chesed mechayev min as a chesed. So if you have a seichel svara to do with something which is kind, then you're going to have a mid as a chesed. But yef shel shum seichel sheyeh shelo yechayev eze midah pratis. Ein lefi shah midah zem be'erech ha-seichel. Chen kol seichel mechayev eze midah. This is the nature of ilah va'olu. This is like the thing. It's not possible that there shouldn't be a midah to the seichel. Why? Because midah is all be'erech ha-seichel. They're not be'ein arich. Seichel and midas are not be'ein arich. They are be'erech. They are be'kiruv. You see be'muchash. is onu roim b'chush. It's not something you have to prove, right? You understand something, or you even have to go through gidrei haseichel so much, even if it's sort of more of a perception and awareness. Even if it's just an awareness of something, it can trigger an emotional response. And we see that has this erech and kiruv, that an intellectual idea can cause emotional responses. They have an erech and they have a kiruv. And since they have an erech and a kiruv, das is mechayev. It means that it would mean if you have an ilah containing within it seichel, it's mechayev that the gilu of that contains within it a midah. It's mechayev that it should be megala that midah. Umemela lefi oifen haseichel keinu amidah. V'nimtza metzias amidah b'aseichel keinu shnisgal. It's not all of a sudden, out of thin air, an emotional reaction comes from an intellectual concept, but already within the conceptual realm, there is the existence of the midah. Once you have a seichel, there has to be a midah too. It's possible you can restrain it, you can contain it, you don't have to indulge in it. Cause man, you're being misasik in the seichel. You can delay the emergence of the midah. But the midah is there. It's behelim, it's bedakus, but it's there. So it's not as if it's like a one-dimensional, one way of thinking about this. No, of course, in each seichel, it's going to have a different relationship to its midah. Every ilah and ol, it's not like just, it's not a very standardized, homogeneous way of relating with each other. It's going to be, there's lots of diversity. Okay, that's ilah v'olu, as we understand it. This is all in contrast to yesh ma'ayin. The yesh and the ayin are be'ein arich. So we've learned many times what is the lashon mei ayin. The ayin sheni and yedua. So it's this sense in which the yesh has no sense of its makir, or no shaychus, no erech. The ayin, the eina yesh be'erech ayin. So both it's not be'erech, but not only is it not be'erech, bu hafchi legamri mimenu. It's the complete opposite ayin. The eina ayin mechayves mitzvah yesh. And this ayin does in no way necessitate that there should be the emergence of the yesh. It's illogical to think that something which is its opposite, its nemesis, in some ways, it's going to necessitate its emergence. There's no pshat. The pshat isn't that the yesh is contained within this ayin. It's just a matter of so you can call it giloi helim, or you can call it tzimtzumim. Somehow if you squeeze hard enough in the ayin, you're gonna get the yesh. It's not there. There's no shaykhus to it. It's nothing like an ilah v'alu. Sha'alu kol b'tchilat b'ilasi k'im shniskali mitnei sha'ila mechayeves is alu. V'lechem b'himatzi ha'ila b'echach himatzi ha'alu ba. Aval ha'ayin eina mechayeves ha'yesh. It's a different relationship. Umemela b'himatzi ha'ayin lo himatzi yesh b'seichim. You have an ayin. And remember, we're not thinking, ayin is not literal. Ayin doesn't mean nothing. Ayin is a ganze something. It's a different sort of something. The ayin is mitzad its bittul. And the yesh is mitzad its lack of bittul. It's hafrada. It's dveik. Ayin has dveikus. Yesh is advekas nekeres. A yesh has advekas she'ein nekeres, and can ultimately become a sort of a certain degree of hafrada. So you have an ayin, you're not going to have a yesh. So ubifrat shu hafchi eichi motze dove v'epuche. You're not going to find in something its opposite. The efshesh bechinas ayin motze yesh. You'll be in a state of constant self-contradiction. Umashn is have a yesh me ayin hurak mitzad shekach ola b'ritzoni yisborich. There's no, if left to its own devices, the ayin, from ayin you'd never develop a yesh. There's no sort of evolution from an ayin into a yesh. From an ilah, it's just a matter of time. Every ilah is mechayiv its ol. But when it comes to ayin and yesh, the bein arich, they have nothing to do with each other innately. The ayin isn't a mocker for the yesh in any real sense. Prior to the aliyas harotzin, prior to the Eibishter wanting the emergence of a yesh from the ayin, the rotzin is what's poyel that from ayin should be yesh. Ayin, yesh does come from ayin. Yesh may ayin. It's not coming from nowhere. It's not poof, sort of all of a sudden appearing. The yesh is coming from the ayin. Why mitzad the rotzin? So once the Eibishter wants there to be the hisavis hayesh, how yesh ba'ayin inyan adov she's having menu. There must be something in the ayin that enables there to be the creation of the yesh. Ba'ayin of the baharot in lahavis kol shom masha ola b'ritzayin in lahavis ve'eich mati yadovahi. Again, it's not coming out no through the rotzin. That means in the ayin there is the means by which you can produce a yesh. Just like a ilah can produce an olul, then an ayin can produce a yesh. So you think, well, second, then we'll say, how's it any different? The seichel amid is ad shebol lepoil. When a person wants to build a house, you have this mashal. The builder knows in their mind exactly how they want this house to look. Ultimately, they want a certain type of house. All is contained within this rotzin. And then the rotzin is poyel that a person should figure out how to build such a house. Api seichel, and the seichel will be masking that the house should look like that and it will look nice. And then it comes into more begilu into midis and everything, and it machshov debul ma'isa. So this the same thing is true. That from nowhere, or out of nowhere, there's going to be a house. Why is there a house? The house, the seichel was not, there was no house, it's not ilava olu. There's no house inside the person's seichel. That's not seichel. It has middays, not shavadi ma'isa, right? But if a person learns architecture, there's no house. It's not machay. It's not ilava olu. You can learn to pick up. You're going to become a builder, then you're going to build a house. You can learn how to become a builder, not build a house. It's not machayev any particular house. There's no ilava olu there. There's ilava olu seichel middays. Ilava olu machshav dibul ma'isa. There's ilava olu. But in vos, svensi chavos. For this particular house and these amounts of rooms and everything, where's that all coming from? It's not coming from the seichel. Originally, it's coming from the rotzin. The rotzin is poyel. This havas habayis. Taka al yidei achachma, taka al yidei amidus, taka al yidei machshav debul ma'isa. It works. It works through the things it has, but it originates. The mocker, the real mocker of that house is the person's ratzon. So we have the same thing. The mile in the ayin, which is going to create the yesh. There's no way that everything's going to come later. It's like the ratzon. Ukamayma shir ba'atzme b'keach. That it's able to estimate how things are all going to be, but all in a state of potential, not yet in reality. All of that vision or imagination was a ruchnistic imagination of how the ilamis are going to be. The real thing that exists is all in potency. It's all in koyach. You can't have something which isn't bottle legamri to alikus in the ayin. Yesh means something. There's a metzius nimtza, has its own metzius. Can I bittel a yesh, but a yesh which is bottle, still a yesh. A yesh who has a hergish metziusim yatzmasi. You can have a high darga of yesh. Can afshri hametzius can be in a true states of bittel and dveikus and yichut and iskashrus with alikus. Obviously yesh. It's not ayin. Ayin is not metzius la'atzmi liktu. There's no bittel hayesh in the ayin. Different in yichud elo yichud atah. As we learned in Ranat. Yeah. I mean ayin and yesh. Yichud elo yichud atah. So, kumoy b'moshel anal. Ba'odem sherei to live in his bias. Sheish be'elam machshav, they have bias for tziyuri k'meishi yachakach. In the moshel, the person has the whole finished house in his mind's eye. Mikol mokim zorak tzira bias. But what does he imagine? He's only imagining what the house is going to look like, which is an imagined vision of the house. Avo guf abayis. But the bricks and the stones and the planks of wood, that for sure is not in his head. So similarly, l'mayla, in the ayin, which is mahava the yesh, there's no metzias hayesh there. It comes from there. It's not like ayin. It's not like there's this third. What am I saying? There's the rotten of the Abish. It's not like the Abish creates a yesh, which could never have emerged from the ayin. No. Because of the Eibish's rot in the ayin, the thing that is in a state of absolute bittul to elikus, the oy, is mahava the yesh. Derech einarich. Teach amafilasis. Tdove v'hipuche. Right? But b'poyal, through the rotzin, the ayin is meshaya what has to be done, and then there's the emergence of the yesh.
Or maybe what will become.
So k'moyken yuvan l'mayla the metzias hayesh mamish lo yikolu ba'ayin klal. The metzias of the yesh was not kolul there. It's aves hayesh mi'ayin it's aves b'derech ein haroich shenimtze metzias she'eina be'erech mekemei who is chadshus k'mor. It's an absolute ischadshus. It's a novelty. How such a thing can happen. There's no chidush that an olul should come from an ilah. It was already there beforehand. A baby is born. The chiddush. It was probably in the mother's womb. It was already there. It's not chiddush. It's just like gilo ahelim, ilah va'olu. She'ein came derech shma'ayin. The relationship. It's al derech, the relationship of the child pre-conception. This is where the moshel is not mechuv. Because there's still efshari hametzias, which is why it's not a good moshel, but it's a helpful way to think about it. Before a child's born, they bechlal exist. They don't exist. The relationship between a child, not to its state the way it was post-conception. Think about a child in relation to preconception. It's ki'ilu einoi. Not that the yesh is kolol in the ayin, like the ol is kolol in the ilah. At that moment, Lifnei aliyas harotzin, to become pregnant, before that aliyas harotzin, to become pregnant, where's the child? Child's a metzias bichlal. That metzias is bichlal in the gather of that person, of the parent. It's an ayin. The parent is like an ayin to that yesh. Everything shaykh. It's still it's not a good marshal because it's already a mokin. It's got shari amatzias, but I think it can be a helpful way of thinking about this. Moving is there, so it's understood from this. The oifen is avesra ayin. Mahav is a yesh. Eine bechnis is slapshus tfisa. So this is really the point he wants to make. The point he wants to make is that what do we understand from here? That when we talk about the kelim of Atzilus, so we're saying chochma mi ayin timotze. The kliya chochma is nishava b'derech bri yesh ma'ayin. Umemela. The oifen is hava sha'ayin ma'av is a yesh. Eine b'chinas is slapshut tfisa. The ayin, which is the eirin seif, which is the eiris of Atzilus and the eish lifnei Atzilus. What's its relationship with the kelim of Atzilus? If you're going to say it's derech ishtalshlus, derech ilva alul, then they have a shaykhas pnimi, they have an erech, they have a kiruv. But once you say it's derech b'riyish ma'ayin, what you're explaining is how there's no islapshus, no tfisa. The ayin is mahavad the yesh. The ayin is still be'ein arich to the yesh. Right? Still be'ein arich. There's no kiruv. There's no shaykhas. So what we said in the previous hagaha was our point about the eirus of Atzilus are not nitfas in the kelim. In the geder ha-kelim, the hagdolas ha-kli, the yeshus ha-kli, what's the yeshus ha-kli? The hagdora that it has. This is chachma, this is binah, this is chesed, this is gvura. Does the eir acquire that hagdora? No, it's not nitfas. The eir remains bein arech to the kli. Obviously, we're going to have to do a bit more explaining because it's still mislabish. There's still a relationship. We're pulling in one direction. Obviously, we'll do more work to put it back in. But at the moment, this is the point we're making. The kvan spoiler il is in the previous hagah. The inyan is labshusu shenigr shamalubish b'hamalbish. When we talk about islabshus, a key component of islabshus is that the person who's enclosed in the thing that's enclosed in the other in the thing that's enclosed in the malubish is nigrish in the malbish. V'chein ha-malubish magrish in the malbish. Works both ways. Both the wearer and the worn have this close sensory relationship. The im came to the point where if you move, your clothes move. If your clothes get wet, you get wet. It affects it. I mean, it's like there's this. You're both magish each other. Were you to say that there's actually this relationship between the ayin and the yesh, that the ayin can be nigish in the yesh, it would become ois yesh. Because then it would be berech ayin, it would be ba'ayin, it would be bottled. There has to be this ein arichkeit in order for it to be a yesh. It has to be bein arich, it can't be nigish. Makere. Umash nishavel mesis yesh u'minei shehisav zi b'derech memela loy b'chines islapshus. So we're using different terms here. Now we use the term derech memela and islapshus. So ilava alvol is derech islapshus. Yesh ma'ayin is b'derech memela. Sometimes you say ilava alvol is b'derech memela. because it's hechrechi. So use different terms. It's worth looking at the I think it's Adam Ki Akshiv. No, maybe I think in the Samach Vav. Does it have the Samach Vav here? Which Samach Vav? If you go back, if you look in footnote 371. 371? No, there's no Samach Vav there.
369 has Samach Vav.
Yeah, go even Amud Reish Samach Beis. There's also in the Maimah Shuvah in Amud Chaf Hey. This is in the new Samach Vavs. Look in the Maimah Shuvah and you look in where it says here Samach Beis. I think you'll find has an interesting beer here about Derech Mamela, Derech Askus, but I don't want to go into those Osius here at the moment. Because he's going to explain it again here. As I said, a lot of the Hasbara is over here already. There's plenty of good Hasbara, and we're going to now explain these Osius, this union of its Labshas and Derech Mamela. Okay, that will be Be'ezus Hashem next time.